Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Simi Solatiku. On October 1, Nigeria's 64th independence anniversary was marked by protests mostly made up of young people who continue their demand for a reversal of what they describe as anti-people policies implemented by President Bola Tinubu, which they say have adversely impacted citizens' standards of living. Despite calls from the Nigerian government and stakeholders in the country to halt the move, youths trooped out en masse to voice out their discontent with the present administration in the movement tagged National Day of Survival. Amid heavy security, protesters in Lagos marched and stormed the venues approved by the state government for the demonstration as they waved the national flag and carried placards with different messages. In the capital, Abuja, police fired tear gas canisters into crowds of demonstrators. In the first wave of protest back in August, protesters were arrested. Yet this time, despite fears of another crackdown by police deployed heavily to potential protest locations nationwide, demonstrators were determined to be heard. Let's now get reactions from a member of the Congress and organizers of the protest, Gideon Adeyemi. Thank you for your time, Gideon. Now, you are part of the demonstration on October 1. The demonstration staged to voice your discontent with the policies implemented by the present administration. Now, in practical terms, what do Nigerians expect from the government to convince them that their welfare is paramount?
Thank you very much for that question. And, you know, I remember another journalist friend asked me a similar question recently, asking uh, whether we need the youth confab and why I think what I think we need to do really, or the presidency needs to do. And my response then, which is going to be my response to your question, is that there are certain minimal expectations that one would uh, feel that the president would meet to say or to convince an average Nigerian that he is concerned. I mean, the president now, Mr. Tinubu, he is concerned about the well-being of Nigerians. At least one would expect a basic respect of democratic rights. That is as simple as one would expect the president to do, so that when people say they are not happy with the policies of the president, of the government, and they go on the street to protest, at least that right to protest, that right to dissent will be respected. So that basic minimum is not even there, so that people languish in jail cells all over the country now for merely expressing their dissatisfaction with the policies of the present government. So when this is not happening, when the policies which the people are hungry over are still being implemented without so much, just so much disregard for the criticism, for the discontent of the people. What do you expect people to do? People cannot believe that the president or those in government generally are interested in their well-being. I was on the street on Tuesday. I was on the street in August, and the reason is because the body language of the president, of all the folks in government, have not shown any willingness to heed any of the demands. The demands for the end bad governance protest are out there. None of it has been met. The hike in fuel price is still there. The hike in school fees is still there. The jumbo pay of politicians is still there, and on and on. All of the demands are there. So none of these demands have been met, and at least one would expect that some of these demands are met for the president to show that, yeah, we are listening. But that is not being done. Only lip service is being paid, and now the president is promising some, what is it called? A youth confab, a 30-day youth confab, which my friend has described, and I think correctly, as a jamboree, which will amount to waste of taxpayers' money eventually.
Now, we understand that organizing any type of demonstration, protest in this country is difficult and time consuming, as it is in other countries, considering funding and logistics. Now, how long do you plan to continue with these demonstrations? And do you think that there can be another approach to voice out your discontent different from staging protests?
So to answer the question of whether these protests, these actions will continue, the answer definitely is a yes, because the conditions that necessitated these protests are still very much with us. They not met any of the demands of the protest, which would have suggested that the protest or the movement may end the actions soon. So definitely there's going to be protest action in the court say categorically now, but I can say that yes, there will be action, and it is going to be soon, because as long as the demands of the movement are not met, surely there is going to be resistance. There is going to be protest actions on the street, definitely. And of course, the demands are out there, like I mentioned earlier: the hike in fuel price, the hike in electricity tariff, the hike in school fees across campuses, the jumbo pay of politicians is still very much there, and on and on. So all the demands are there. None of these demands have been met, and so resistance actions will continue. On the dates, this will be democratically discussed at the organizational level, and so it will be communicated to you and to the public generally. On the resources and the difficulty of the struggle, of course, we recognize that as long as we have been saying at the protest ground, that as long as that as long as the conditions remain, we have no option but to continue to protest. And we have been saying that when tyranny becomes a rule, resistance becomes a duty. So we recognize that we have a duty right now with prevailing oppressive system that we are in, to continue to resist. And truly, we are in an oppressive system. Our people, the bulk of Nigerian people, every day go through frustrating experiences, whether while trying to meet certain basic needs. It could be with power, it could be with fuel, clean up at filling station, it could be with the condition of our housing. Every day we go through frustrating experiences that define the oppressive system that we live within, and all of our effort to make the government reverse the policies that have exacerbated the conditions that we are talking about has yielded nothing. So the protest will surely continue, and we will continue to be on the street because we recognize it as a duty. So despite the challenges, despite the limited resources, we will continue to put our widow's mite together. I'm a salary earning worker. In our movement, we have students. In our movement, we have artisans. We'll continue to put the little that we have together to ensure that the protests go on. And when we have to use makeshift placards, we'll do so, as long as we have this will to continue. We know for sure that as long as we're on the path of justice, we are surely going to win this battle. So despite the rigor, despite the challenges, we are going to continue this protest until the demands of the movement are met.
You're aware that Nigerians have been dealing with these economic challenges long before President Tinubu assumed office. However, given the current situation, his name is on the lips of majority of Nigerians. What's your reaction to this? And don't you think that the president needs more time to address these challenges?
Well, the president's name is almost synonymous with the present administration in Nigeria. We have studied our political space over the past period, and not just in Nigeria, too, in many other societies. So that when they mention Tinubu, for instance, they are talking about the Nigerian government, or especially at the federal level. And of course, the president has to take a large part of the blame for the current situation that the Nigerians are in, because while we have, like I said, experienced the worsening of our situation over the past decades, we cannot deny that these situations have worsened more since the beginning of the present administration led by Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Remember that the first day that Tinubu was sworn in as president, he declared fuel subsidy removal, which immediately hiked fuel price. Since then, we have seen also hiking tuition fees across universities. We have seen hiking prices of commodities. We have seen the devaluation of the naira, so that the policies of Tinubu has in fact worsened the situation of the Nigerian people. And when they say Tinubu, which, like I said, is also a way of calling on the federal government and the Nigerian government generally, it is correct that Tinubu's policies have worsened the lot of the Nigerian people, and he has to take the chief blame for the current situation the Nigerians are in, and he has to also take responsibility for fixing things, or should leave the scene. I think it has to come to that. And this is not just me saying this. This is what Nigerians are saying on the streets. When we marched on Tuesday, this is what people were saying on the streets. Market women, young people on the street, this is what they were saying, that they don't know how to govern, they should leave the seats. And I think that is correct. So Tinubu's economic policies have worsened the situation of Nigerian people. And when they call his name, it is correct to do so, and it should show signs of responsibility by making sure that things were at least the way they were before he came there. Things were not this bad. Things were not this bad. If you were anyone who was earning, let's say, 200,000 naira to a year and a half ago, you know how much that is in dollars, for instance, and then now calculate whatever you are earning today in dollars. I mean, that's in 200,000 in dollars, and salary has not increased really, so that Nigerians have become poorer. Some persons have analyzed some decades ago, an average professor was earning close to $2,500 or $3,000. Now the salary of a professor is maybe 450 or 500,000 naira. Calculate that, that's far less than $300 today, as at today's exchange rate, and check how much it was a year and a half ago. And so that when they say that Tinubu has worsened the situation of Nigerians, it is correct. It is correct, and he should take responsibility to fix it, or otherwise he should leave the scene.
Well, now the president assures that the economic measures implemented by his administration are in the best interest of Nigerians. Gideon Adeyemi, one of the organizers of the End Bad Governance and National Day of Survival protest, we really appreciate your time with us. We'll go on a short break, and when we return, the conversation will continue. Do stay with us. Welcome back. We're still discussing the October 1 End Bad Governance protest that citizens, majorly youths, staged over the economic hardship in the country. My next guest is political affairs analyst Nelson Ekujimi. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Let's look at the demands made by the protesters on October 1 and the demands made back in August, resonating with the demands that have always been made long before now. And now that the APC is in power, Nigerians are still lamenting a situation that has plunged them deeper into severe hardship. How do you respond to the ongoing complaints by citizens, or should I say unending complaints by citizens over the economic hardship in the country?
Well, thank you very much. It's a fact that the role of the opposition in any democratic system is to keep the government and the party in power on its tools. And that is what we expect any opposition party to do within the realm of logic and rationality and socio-economic reality. A lot of times when political party in opposition make claims, one expects any citizen or group of people to examine those claims within the realm of logic, rationality, and socio-economic reality. It is not enough for an opposition party accusing the government of the day. When they make such allegations, or when they make such accusations, it behoves on citizens to examine the socio-economic reality of the times. Yes, you talked about when the PDP was in power. Yes, when the PDP was in power between 1999 to 2015, one remember very well that there were, even during the life of former President Goodluck Jonathan, we were selling crude oil at over $100 per barrel. And we're producing 2.3 million barrels, between 2.1 million barrels to 2.3 million barrels per day. The question you should ask, if we have made such humongous revenue, where was it spent to? How did it impact on the lives of Nigerians? And the answer is absolutely no. It didn't impact in any way. You talk about an APC government that came into power in 2015. Without standing as the mouthpiece of that government, you recollect that under former President Muhammadu Buhari, at a point in the life of his administration, the price of crude oil plummeted to $28 per barrel. Even at that $28 per barrel, we were producing barely 500,000 barrels per day. From 2.3 million to 500,000 barrels per day, from about $120 per barrel to $28. You do the arithmetic. You know, somebody who sold at about $120 per barrel and produced 2.3 million barrels per day for a stretch of almost 2 to 3 years, compared to somebody who sold at $28 per barrel and the country was producing about 500,000 barrels per day. You know, it's not the same. So when people make allegations or accusations on any issue, or they throw up any issue, it is for us to examine the fact that, look, the man who sold crude oil at $28 per barrel, and who was producing barely 500,000 barrels per day, we saw the infrastructural renewal that he put in place that is unequaled, even as we speak. And when people come out and, try to run down that government, I'm a strong defender of what the government did, because I remember during the life of the party before 2015, when the party, one of the presidential spokesman told us point blank that we cannot afford new coaches for our trains. Under President Muhammadu Buhari, between 2015 and 2023, we had brand new coaches. Our train system got revived. You talk of the second Niger bridge, that, the PDP government between 1999 to 2015, former President Olusegun Obasanjo turned the sword once. Former President Goodluck Jonathan turned the sword for the second Niger bridge almost about 3 times without laying even a block on the ground. But former President Muhammadu Buhari, within 8 years of his administration, even with paucity of funds, the second Niger bridge became a reality to the delight of every Nigerian. So the criticism or issues must be looked at within the context of socioeconomic reality, as well as being rational and logical.
Now, a major policy that the current administration of President Bola Tinubu stood against back then was, or let's say Bola Tinubu himself, was the removal of fuel subsidy. Matter of fact, this was a major demand during the Occupy Nigeria protest during the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan. The president, that's Bola Tinubu, has now refused to reverse this policy, which he implemented when he assumed office, as well as, others, described as anti-people. What's your take on this development?
Well, if you are going back to 2012, I'll tell you for free, I was an active participant in the 2012 struggle, Occupy Nigeria, of which President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was also involved. The difference between Occupy Nigeria 2012 and what is presently on ground are not the same. Under former President Goodluck Jonathan, we had an administration that could not account for the fuel subsidy funds, of which even President Goodluck Jonathan, in one of his engagements with former Senate President, admitted that the fuel subsidy was a scam. And when we took to the street, we didn't take to the street because there was no fuel subsidy, but we took to the street because the fuel subsidy regime was being used by cronies of former President Goodluck Jonathan to steal public funds. That was our grouch. So people should stop misconstruing that we were against fuel subsidy. It was not that we were against the removal of fuel subsidy. It was because former President Goodluck Jonathan was not truthful as a leader of the country, and he knew it himself. So we said, no, you are not honest enough. You are not sincere enough. You are not prudent enough to supervise over this issue, because you have shown clearly that you are with them in the pillaging and pillandering of the Nigerian people's wealth through fuel subsidy, which subsequent investigation by the House of Representatives proved every Nigerian right. You talk about people taking to protest. It is some people, it is not everybody. I don't believe in the protest, because that protest is being spearheaded by a presidential candidate who has lost election repeatedly. In the morning is a politician. In the afternoon, he becomes a human rights activist. You don't do that in any sane society. You must be identified for a particular identity. You can't be an activist in the morning and be a politician in the. You are either an activist or you be a politician. That way, we know you are dealing with these issues without political bias. Yes, you talk about the economic times. That is a fact that the economy is biting out on everybody. But the reality of why the economy is like this, any discerning mind does not need anybody to prod him or to educate him if you really want to, be dispassionate about it. It's a fact that fuel subsidy has been, almost halved. That's what the administration has done, because the subsidy we are talking about, even if you monitor development, was still being paid by NNPC through operating costs. NNPC was bearing the cost, only that it was not being appropriated in the national budget. So when you talk about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu not listening to, it's because the people who are talking are not talking from the point of view of education and, reality of the situation. They were only trying to gain political capital using our situation. And a lot of us came out and said, no, we understand these issues very well. You cannot use protest or that there's hunger in the land, that the price of goods and services are hitting the rooftop, now want to lead us on a journey to satisfy your own personal ego. No, absolutely not. Those people who are protesting, they were protesting for what they wanted to protest about. I wouldn't know if they believed in it, because I don't know their mind. But for some of us, and a lot of Nigerians who didn't join the protest and who also distanced themselves, because you can see that in August, the protest was largely unsuccessful. It was a failure, and it was unpopular, because we went out there to educate the people that, look, where we are today is as a result of years of wastages, years of not doing what is right, years of not making sacrifices. This is the time to make sacrifices, and these sacrifices will come at a lot of inconveniences, and those are the inconveniences all of us are going through. No matter your status, we are paying the same price together. But if some persons believe, because of their political leanings, because of their parochial mindset, that they can instigate a lot of us who have our brains on our head, who can reason rationally and logically, then they better think twice, because we won't fall for their gimmick. The economic reality is such that the government of the day is putting in every measure to tackle it. Mr. President has announced it severally. Mr. President has come out severally to tell Nigerians that he feels their pains, and that is a fact. Every home, every individual, even those in diaspora, are also concerned about the situation in Nigeria. So we don't need anybody to gaslight us, to do that, which is against national interest.
Finally, in your opinion, what can be done at this point to de-escalate the brewing tension that is steadily building among the youth to make up the majority of the population in the country, whose purchasing power has been, hampered severely more than at this time, more than any government in power? Do you think that there is an alternative solution, seeing that this administration is standing firm on its decision to not reverse its economic policies, particularly the removal of petrol subsidy?
Well, what we will do to the youths who to some of the youths who are genuinely concerned but who don't understand is to educate them. And those who understand and are trying to be mischievous, who also educate them that, look, the government is not a magician. I'm not sure President Bola Ahmed Tinubu promised us heaven on earth. Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, on being sworn into office, promised to give his best. And that we are sure he's doing, because we are following his economic and his political and social other policies to better the lives of Nigerians. Yes, the policies are very clear. They are very discerning. If you have a discerning mind, if your mind is not, if you don't have a preconceived notion about how things should be, the youths need to be educated to know that life operates in a process. That life is such that when you plant corn today, you don't expect to reap corn immediately. When you plant maize, it takes a lot of efforts. It takes a lot of resources for it to germinate and become edible. It does not become edible the day you put the seed into the soil. So it is for us to educate them that, look, life runs by processes. Life does not run based on how I wish, because otherwise, as a young man, when I went into the university, I knew I was going in for a 4-year course. And I knew that my 4-year course could even extend beyond if I fail some of my courses, which are, those compulsory courses. So it's not about me wishing, oh, I'm going into the university, I must come out in 4 years. How about if any emergency happens and schools is not able to open, maybe a year or 2? Will I say they should close down those 2 years and make sure I graduate in 4 years? No. Life is a process. Life is about mechanism. So the youths need to be educated, they need to be admonished, they need to be tutored, they need to be mentored on what life is all about. Because a lot of youths, we have seen a lot of responsible youths who have come out openly and said, we are not part of this. We recognize the reality on ground. We will not be gaslighted to do what is wrong. So to those youths, we'll continue, even those youths will continue to engage them. And we call on the government, using all means of communication, both formal and non-formal, to continue to engage these youths. And even those who might be succumbing to the manipulation, to people trying to turn history the other way around. We also continue to engage them, and we call on the authorities to do the same.
Well, then, political affairs analyst Nelson Ekujimi, we really appreciate your time on the program. Thank you very much. That's how much you can take on this episode of the program. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.